Good evening, everyone, and hearty pranams to you all. So, we'll now begin with this chapter on knowledge, Upasana, and happiness. Before I begin, I would like to sit quietly for a few minutes. I wish you all close your eyes and pray. Pray that Pujya Lalaji Maharaj triggers within us some level of understanding so that we can understand his words and his wisdom. May he grants us the ability to digest the knowledge that he has given and make it part of our life. That's all. So we begin now. Before we get into this, I would like to discuss something on what is knowledge. What do we understand by that? What do we understand by Upasana? And what we understand by happiness? Every living being craves for happiness. Any attempt to destroy life creates unhappiness. Life supported by soul itself is blissful. What prevents all this is interference from our side. In essence, what Lalaji says is it is the vasana that distorts this blissful state, causing us unhappiness, sorrow, sadness. It is interference from our side, but left to nature itself, left to godly dictums itself, will be very blissful and happy. What is Upasana? This word, single word, can be broken into up and asana. Up means above, in higher consciousness. Asana means to settle. Allowing our consciousness to settle in higher consciousness available to us at any given moment is Upasana. Will I be able to access the consciousness, highest consciousness of Babuji Maharaj, or even his lowest level of consciousness? Will we be able to access? It is said in autobiography of Babuji Maharaj, one of the saint beautifully puts it, that your lowest level of consciousness, is addressing Babuji, cannot be reached even by the highest consciousness of the saint ever born on this planet. That was his status. For us, Upasana means make it available. Let us strive to access to the nearest highest consciousness available to us at any given moment. And each time we ascend one ladder after another, one plank after another plank, we'll continue to improve. It should not be like, one meditation where we have access to a higher level of consciousness and then you drop back. And then you try to climb up again and then you drop. That will not serve the purpose. That's why some alertness, some carefulness, some interest in maintaining our own integrity, our own condition. Integrity, because it is disintegration that spoils our condition. Knowledge. We all have various ideas of what knowledge is. Gyan. Opposite of it is agyan, ignorance. But according to Lalaji Maharaj, knowledge is something else. Something that you enjoy, experience once you merge yourself with the higher consciousness, and what arises out of it is true knowledge. Where you think, where you understand, where you contemplate, and you are able to discriminate right from wrong. That is true knowledge. In one of the chapters, he had classified 3 types of knowledge. This is the ultimate knowledge he is talking about. So we explore now into this chapter. In one of the chapters, Lalaji talks about knowledge. He says knowledge is that which is known, and that too in such a way that one becomes equal to the known thing, and only knowing remains. It can be called as a form of similarity or tadakar. A man of knowledge, human beings especially, human beings. Often we take up the subject of evolution of consciousness from animal level to human level to divine level. While I was exploring this, one idea came that human mind, unlike animal mind, cares about consequences. Whatsoever I do, I should have idea ahead of time what will be the consequences of my actions. That makes us human. If this focus is not there, if this understanding is not there, though we may think, but somehow we turn our eyes against it and continue doing it. That's a height of ignorance and stupidity. In Sanskrit they call it muda. There's a lot of interesting things emerging out of all these things as we explore more and more of this. There is no end to this discussion on knowledge, upasana and happiness. Knowledge, according to him also, Lalaji puts it bit in a very systematic fashion, like a professor. He defines knowledge. He says it's a word, gyan is similar to Veda. Ved to know. What is written in Vedas is all knowledge. When we also understand the meaning of Vedana, means pain, is also derived from this word with. With leading to knowledge, with also leading to pain, Vedana. So how this pain and knowledge are related, see? Imagine a judge. He is fully aware of lot of legalities of various things. But if he turns his head in the other direction, then this knowledge can become pain. He'll be overridden with guilt. Tiger or lion doesn't know about murders. That they don't feel guilty about it. They are not confused about killing. Judge, by the way, he is supposed to know what legal terms are in the actions and the consequences. But if he turns his head, despite of knowing everything, despite of knowing all legal aspects of the thing, turning the head away from the facts will soon going to haunt him until his last breath for the actions that he committed despite of knowledge. So knowledge and pain, they are very closely related. Also, ignorance can give you a lot of pain. If you become ignorant about something that you're missing out. For example, in Sahaj Marg we say, I like to describe the spiritual conditions during each meditation that happens. But most of us are not able to do that. Well, this topic can be discussed some other time, and we all have been feeling pain because of this lack of some ability, not in a position to understand what is really happening inside us during the meditation. Okay. So we begin. I would like to start with the last paragraph of the chapter. Last paragraph says, no theory is tenable in spiritual field except that of the flow of disposition and steadiness of attention. Spiritual happiness is nothing but steadiness, settling and peace. So let's begin now. Here, when we are talking about spiritual field, the subject matter is about soul. Thus, we understand that spiritual happiness is an outcome of settling and steadying of mind on innermost core. Anything that can make it unsettled and make it unsteady will surely lead to disturbance. Steadiness of mind is, to my understanding, the condition of sthit pragya. What can destroy this steadiness of mind? In order to understand all that, we have to understand with what we are identifying ourselves. Lalaji puts it body-minded, mind-minded, or desires-minded. He calls many a times that we are identifying ourselves with multiplicity. Too many things. Identifying ourselves with objective world. He says, turn your head around and identify yourself with unity. Let it settle there. Let your mind and heart settle on that unity. The subjective world, the inner world. We begin with the heart. Distortion happens and we remain identified with multiplicity, with the objective world, because of desires. This is the fundamental thing that takes us away, which shakes our foundation, the desires. And what precedes desires is a wish. Simple wish. I wish I had that. I wish I had married this girl. I wish I had married this man. I wish I had this bungalow. I wish I had that job. Wish, 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 wish. It continues. So long as a man does not know the real nature of a subject, its effect and benefit, he will not be convinced of it, nor does he settle on it. I repeat, so long as a man does not know the real nature of a subject, its effect and benefit, he will not be convinced of it, nor does he settle on it. So one has to know the subject first, what we are striving for. The subject in our sadhana, in our practice, the real subject is the master. Trying to understand, so that by understanding from his perspective, we are able to apply that in our life. That becomes knowledge through experience. It must not be a blind belief or a blind faith, as we were talking on Sunday. It must arise out of your personal experiences. This is true even in the field of education, like physics, chemistry, or your day-to-day handling of multiple projects, where the subject under the scanner of your mind has to be well understood before you can intelligently discuss the matter with confidence. It is this confidence that gives you high during the discussion, that, oh, I know so. This confidence arising out of the subject that you have learned and you have mastered it, that gives you high. What gives the high to a runner? It's called runner's high, the athlete's high. People get high on drugs also. But that's a different level of happiness, where it depends on subjective or objective knowledge. It would be dependency on objective knowledge. Lalaji Maharaj is taking us towards the knowledge of subjective world, the inner world. It is this confidence that gives high during the discussion. Without this confidence, one remains clueless. What do we call this type of person who talks a lot and has no understanding? What if it is you, yourself? You talk a lot, but no understanding. How would you feel? I'm sure most professors are also feeling like that. They teach a lot without understanding. Some professors are great. Their experience when they share, it will be in very simple terms, in very simple language. This is another sign. Whenever a person makes a subject very complex, know for granted that he doesn't know it. Otherwise, the subject matter itself would have become very simple. Second paragraph. And unless he settles on it, he does not get peace and happiness. The mystery of all happiness lies in steadying and settling down of the activities of the mind. This is yoga. What is settling of the mind means as per yoga? When mind is not running here and there, it is in total pratyahara state, which Rishi Patanjali calls is that state of yoga. And yoga, according to him, is chit vritti nirodha. We are not allowing your mind to wander on objective things. You are not becoming a slave to your own, what we call, habits, slave of habits. We become slave to habits because of samskaras and tendencies that we carry life after life. So, again, unless he settles, he does not get peace and happiness. The mystery of all happiness lies in the steadying and settling of the activity of the mind. Happiness is the air of peace and rest. Peace and rest gives birth to happiness. As we have understood even from Gita, one of the slokas says, in order to arrive at happiness, certain level of harmony, certain level of peace is required, inner peace. Without this, happiness is not going to happen. Peace is a product of contemplative mind that understands. And how can you contemplate and understand things without your mind becoming steady and focused on the subject and the scanner of your mind? And how can we make our mind focus unless it is put through this exercise, daily exercise of meditation? Focusing the mind is a key so that we can arrive at steadying of the mind, and steady mind leads to peace. This peace opens up the arena to arrive at happiness. Lalaji says, such is the arrangement in the order of nature, that it is the peace and restfulness that gives happiness. This is the arrangement in nature. This is a law. This is a principle. No one can change it. All this game is according to that arrangement only. But knowledge or spirituality, on the importance of which so much of stress is laid, concerns itself with the problem of bondage and veil. Otherwise, what has happened is happening, or will happen and will continue to happen, goes on in its own sequence. So here, Lalaji somehow is belittling this idea of bondage. Ascetics, a lot of our people are too busy discussing bondage and detachment. Even Babuji Maharaj talks about it. He said, don't pay too much of attention to this detachment and so much of bondage and so many problems to be solved. He said, no. How many problems will you solve in life? There is no end to it. Focus on one major thing. If you solve that one major riddle, you will solve all other riddles. Focus your mind on the essential. The rest will fall into place. That essential, according to Lalaji, is driving ourselves away from multiplicity and focus on one. So automatically both our masters have annihilated this idea of bondage. He said, don't pay too much attention to it. They will drop on their own once you attach yourself to something higher. Settling on the subject means that you have understood the nuances. How can there be peace without understanding? Imagine a scenario where your boss does not understand you at all. And you keep saying, oh, what happened to my boss? He doesn't understand me. My colleagues don't understand me. How can you have a peaceful environment when people don't understand each other? So understanding is the key where you're coming from. what you're trying to say, what you're trying to suggest. Of course, it's a different matter. People knowingly ignore you and say, I don't understand. That's a different matter altogether. Such environment creates so much of frustration to the extent that people even contemplate suicide. You have seen in autobiography of Babuji Maharaj how many times he had thought of committing suicide because of his work environment was so painful. His father was very afraid that he might really end up committing. So, this frustration arising in the family environment, office environment, it's mainly arising out of this inability of others to understand, and inability of an individual also failing to understand the other. So Lalaji Maharaj's focus is that true knowledge will come only when you understand the subject. So try to understand the subject. What is under discussion? What is being played out? What is your role as an employee or as a boss, or how you have to perform each task? That understanding is a primary thing. Lalaji states, happiness is air of peace and rest. Without peace and rest, how can there be happiness? I have copied down some slokas also from Gita for people who would like to refer chapter 2, sloka number 55 and 66, which is connected very well with this particular chapter. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha madomatam atmanyavatmana tushta sita pragyasta dochyate. When a man surrenders all the desires that have entered the mind, and by the grace of God finds the joy of God, then he is called a man of steady wisdom. What Lalaji says, steadying of the mind is very important. Again, this has been reflected in Gita, that the root cause of all is desires. Root cause of all the sorrows and problems in life are desires. Another sloka. I think I should avoid reading Sanskrit. People might laugh at my pronunciation, but I'll try. Okay. Nasti buddhir yuktasya na chayuktasya bhavana na chabhavayata santira santasya kuta sukham. 266. There is no wisdom for a man without harmony, and without harmony there is no contemplation. Without contemplation there cannot be peace. How can there be joy without peace? How can there be happiness without peace? This idea of happiness is so comparative and relative. What is happiness to a toddler? What is happiness to a teenager? What is happiness to a married man or unmarried man? Or what is happiness for a guy over 60s like me? They all change. The definition of happiness changes for everybody. The focus, the identification of our mind is different at different stages of our life. This is what Lalaji says about multiplicity. You don't expect a toddler to focus on unity, for example, or a teenager whose hormones are rushing and ever ready to trouble parents. Because of this ego, newly found ego and identity. That is one. Number two is the hormones. Number three is too much of knowledge and no compassion. They know too much, much more than parents. So the idea of superiority kicks in. There is always a conflict then. Say, I know better than you. What do you know? You're an old style fellow. Well, anyway, we are drifting. What is yoga? Yoga is Chitta Vritti Nirodha. It is all about curbing the tendencies of all the tendencies which are flowing outward. We have to curb them and bring them inward. Tendencies are like riverbed upon which each time there will be flood whenever it rains. It means Master he clarified this many a times, the difference between sanskaras and tendencies. Babuji used to say that sanskaras can be cleaned, but the problem is with these tendencies. Some of you may not be aware of this fact. Then we remain under the illusion that, the sanskaras are gone and I'm free. But what if these tendencies are still hiding? So the example which Babuji Maharaj gives is this, that often during summer time, rivers dry up. That means the water is gone. It is like all sanskaras are gone. You feel as if sanskaras are gone. But when the environment changes and you face a new environment, monsoon kicks in, the rain comes. Again the riverbed is flowing with water. So this is tendency. And he challenges us that how to destroy this riverbed once and for all. He said, bulldoze it. How are we going to bulldoze our inner riverbed upon which these sanskars are flowing like torrential rivers? Only answer that comes to my heart is this: to arrive at a state of living dead. That is equivalent to destroying the riverbed. When you destroy that, you do not even bother about sorrow, you do not even bother about happiness. Both are gone. You arrive at a state of nothingness. Lalaji doesn't touch that topic here of arriving at nothingness. That was left to Babuji Maharaj to invent that central region, the center, and gift us this concept of nothingness. Arrive at the state of living dead condition. Babuji doesn't talk of happiness. He talks of acceptance. He talks of living dead state. He talks of surrender. He talks of accepting miseries as gifts. So there is some sort of a paradox between this chapter and the essence of Sahaj Marg. There's a vast difference here. Okay. So, some thoughts I had written down, and I had to keep on referring because I forget. Thus, the primary focus ought to be allowing the mind to rest on the higher principles and not allow it to digress to such an extent that we become slaves to desires. You see the progression from wish, it moves to desires. From desires, it moves to expectations, which leads further to demanding that my expectations must be fulfilled. You start demanding. From demands, it imposes the rights that it's my right. It's my right. When you start demanding, you fall. You actually, literally fall in the eyes of others. They might fulfill your demands. Drunkard husband comes home. Wife would change his clothes, maybe clean him up, put him in the bed with respect. How long this can go on? See? But you expect, I demand. She may do it for some time, but will there be happiness? Once you lose self-respect, you've lost it all. You succumb to self-isolation then, see? That will become like a self-imposed jail, your isolation. How can you find freedom when you have lost self-respect because you stupidly kept demanding things in order to fulfill your expectations, desires that started with wish, simple wish. So our prayer is a very potent prayer. Babuji has prescribed to us that we are yet but slaves of wishes, putting bar to our advancement. See? It's so true. Lalaji emphasizes, such is the arrangement in the order of nature. All this game is according to that arrangement only. But knowledge or spirituality, on the importance of which so much stress is laid, concerns itself with the problem of bondage in veil. Now the question is, where is the greatness of knowledge if everything happens automatically? Where is the need to know and for the desire and effort to know? The answer is that which is called knowing, and the struggle to know also exists in the same order of nature. How can we escape from it? What is destined to happen would definitely continue to happen. Then the question would be, why should we bother when a certain thing happens without our bothering about it? In that case, our effort would be useless, and the thing remains unattainable. So Lalaji is only trying to emphasize in a very cynical way. Don't depend on destiny. You are not an impotent observer of your life. Get into it. Interfere with your life's, the stages. You have to be an active participant somehow. At the same time, be a witness and see how you can act on it. See? So the question posed to us is, in that case, our effort would be useless and the thing remains unattainable. Why should we bother when a certain thing happens without our bothering about it? The answer to this is, better do not worry. If there is no worry, it is well and good. But what we call worry is mind's itch, which is the result of inner desires. Lalaji Maharaj has given such a beautiful definition of worry as mind's itch. And so long as the desire is not fulfilled, it will be there working for fulfillment. This desire is called vasana in Sanskrit. Due to this alone, the human world comes into being. And unless this desire is transformed into desirelessness, one cannot get peace. Lalaji, if there is no worry, it is well and good. But what we call worry is actually mind's itch, which is the result of inner desires. And so long as the desire is not fulfilled, it will be there working for fulfillment. So, how can there be rest? Okay. Some comments I have written that sprouts of desires or wishes will emerge from the seeds of sanskara. Sprouts of our desires will emerge from the seeds of samskara. Leading a lifestyle preventing samskara formation is a prerequisite for a spiritual seeker. It's a different thing that we know how to clean ourselves. But better would be, in the first place, not to allow them to form at all. Okay. On one side, you want to arrive at a lofty spiritual state. But what if a so-called seeker becomes a slave of desires, entertainer of wishes, and leads a lifestyle against this steadying of the mind or sthita pragya? When we ponder over the essence of this knowledge, it is all there in our expressions. The heartfulness, recognizing that we are yet but slaves of wishes. We have to think again and again on that prayer. The following passage praises the value of experience based on knowledge. Lalaji says, the transformation of desire into desirelessness means stability, upasana, and settling. This is secured either by knowledge or by contentment due to fulfillment of desire. A sort of stability comes after obtaining a desired thing. Hence the wise have sung in the praise of knowledge, and it is true to the word. The deficiency in discrimination, judgment, and firmness of mind is bound to be there so long as one does not gain knowledge. Lack of knowledge is total deficiency. So it is a known fact that a man who cannot take a quick decision and hesitates is always restless. It's a beautiful thing. You have seen so many people in life. They keep on postponing decisions. They can't make a decision. And you see what happens. They're always restless. There's never a peace on their mind. So, lack of ability of making decisions because they lack discriminative faculties. And one who has no discrimination cannot be compared and say he is human. He's lost his humanity. What differentiates us is the ability to see the consequences of our actions, our thoughts, and put a break. When we see things are going wrong or what I am thinking is going to lead me to a wrong thing, that one day this simple wish can make me demand things from others and make it as if it is my birthright that it has to be fulfilled. You see how this is leading us into a mess. It was not expected of us as human beings to come down to such a level, actually. See what has become of us. That's why in beginning of this Truth Eternal, somewhere I think Babuji puts it or Lalaji puts it, that nature wanted spiritual giants, but it resulted in small pygmies. We have become pygmies. Anyway, okay. Contentment and desirelessness are almost one and the same condition. It's beautiful, no? Contentment and desirelessness are almost the same. Two different names for the one same spiritual state. The fulfillment of desire can be called bhoga, and desirelessness can be called yoga. Yoga is a bhoga as well. Tasting the bhog, and yoga is named for the union of the essence. Union of the essence, the spirit. See the beauty in these words. Yoga is the name for the union of essence. Now this is my addition, that while worldly bhoga is all about fulfilling senses, yoga is union of essence, and bhoga is all about fulfilling senses. Reverting back to truth eternal, knowledge and action both become one towards the end. Thousands of works, karma, are produced from one work, and innumerable desires take birth from the womb of one single desire in the beginning. Not knowing about these things is to dwell in darkness. See, one has to become aware of this very fact, that one desire can multiply and become many. How many of us are aware of this? When experience is gained in performing action and removing desires, and when the mind is purified, the condition of knowledge opens up. Then discrimination is awakened. One steps into region of light, and the mind remains firm in desirelessness. Karma is the first stage, and knowledge is the last. So, according to Lalaji, karma takes all precedence. It comes first. You can't entertain yourself and so, I have jnana, I know so much. But where is your karma? Karma comes first. Otherwise, it just remains as an information. Oh, the 13th point is in my occipital region. That is information. It's not your knowledge. Once you truly experience it and describe it with your own tongue, with your own thoughts, that yes, I feel like this, this is it, this is the condition of 13th point, then it's true knowledge. Until then, it's just information. First point is here, fourth point is here, it's all about water, it's all about courage and fear. These are all informations. Engaging in conversation without thinking and understanding is the first stage. It is called Mimamsa. Mimamsa has two branches. The Purva Mimamsa, or search for first knowledge, and Uttara Mimamsa, or search for subsequent knowledge. The first is action or work, which is only related to the knowledge of the ultimate status of the Vedas. If this is the idea, then it is the first stage. And Uttara Mimamsa is knowledge, but only that knowledge which is related to the essential status of the Vedas. This is the subsequent or a superior stage. Those who understand them as such are not deluded, but those who perform ordinary actions, keeping in view the fulfillment of some desires, raise action after action and desire after desire, and being caught in the web of this cycle are thrown far away from the destination. Likewise, those who, knowing the purpose of knowledge, restrict themselves to mere argumentation, proof, and discussions, are lost midway. Debates after debates, arguing, trying to prove a point, counterpoint. All these are counterproductive, takes you away from the destination. They become verbal pendants, hair splitters, hair splits for nothing, and will be nowhere. Here, Lalaji talks of precedence of karma. We have to understand the difference between karma and shrama. See, in Gita, Lord Krishna talks about karmanyavadhikaraste ma phalesu kadachanam. Babuji was laughing when this statement was repeated to him. He says, why in the world I would do something without knowing that I have to get something out of that action? Let me explain a little bit better. If I have to fly to Delhi, I'll have to buy a ticket, I'll have to arrange payments, I'll have to call someone to book my ticket or go online and do. Some effort will be required. At the same time, the result of that effort, I had to be in Delhi. That's the fruit of my action. So in reality, fruit of the action determines the course of my action. So, is the demand by Lord Krishna wrong? That karmanyavadhikaraste ma phalesu kadachanam? He said, don't worry about the results, you do the karma. But this karma of those days had a different meaning. What Lalaji talks about karma here, and Lord Krishna talks about karma then, they are the same thing. Both are related to Brahma Vidya. When we are praying, when we are doing tapasya, when we are doing meditation and cleaning, when we are serving the society, it is karma. It is related to Brahma Gyan. It is tapasya. The result of such tapasya, such karma, they are in His hands. We surrender. We accept the consequences, whatever that be. What Babuji meant that when I had to do something based on the fruits already in my mind, that is shrama. I work, I operate business, I cook in the kitchen, I give a sitting. It is to create a certain condition by giving a sitting. Something is in my mind. The result is already there. Similarly, when I have to work for payment, it is all shrama. It is related to this objective world. Thousands of years have changed the meaning of the word karma. I often say the word gay has changed drastically, the meaning of the word gay. 40, 50 years back, the word gay had a different connotation. It means I'm so happy, I'm so joyful today. But making a statement, I'm gay, has a different meaning today. Imagine, just in 40 years or 50 years. the meaning of the word changed. Time between the recitation of Gita and now is enormous, thousands of years. Meanings have changed. Karma then meant only a pursuit for the knowledge of Brahma. Shrama has a different meaning. Otherwise, why would there be total distinction, two distinct words, Shrama and Karma? Anyway, this is to highlight further on, to understand the role of karma in arriving at knowledge, which Lalaji here talks about. It's a subjective knowledge. He's not talking of objective knowledge. Objective knowledge means related to the world. According to him, karma is the practical or utilitarian side of manifestation of existence, where knowledge is the essential aspect. These two aspects are conjoined with the middle link, which is the human heart. This very heart sends its currents in the grosser regions of existence, causes the action to be performed and practiced, and thus arranges for the expression of its existence. The same heart sends its currents in the subtler regions and, assuming the heirship of the knowledge, settles in the middle. So long as it lies in knowledge and action, it enjoys the bliss of both. But if it leans completely towards either of two, it becomes either this or that, because it has the reflection and influence of both, the subtle and the gross. Let me repeat this again in my own words. Heart likes something, dislikes something. When the likes or dislikes are related to this body, when likes and dislikes are related to something of karma, in pursuit of Brahma Vidya, okay, when it is diverted in both directions, it is splitting its attention. The steadiness or steadying of the mind is not focused now. See, if my mind or my heart was focused, either with likes or with dislikes, then there will be some conclusion. Heart likes to bring conclusion at any given moment. It doesn't like to see things incomplete. Whether you make a conclusion out of things you like, or you put an end to things you don't like, heart will be happy, because it likes to see the conclusion. But lingering on both sides in a confused state, that is not steadying of the mind. Heart will never cooperate in such exercises. It will remain confused. I made some other notes also, that why heart behaves like this. Heart would witness, like you see what they talk in neurology, that we have olfactory nerves connected with the eyes. We have the auditory nerves connected with the ears. Nerves are connected with the brain, right? Taste buds are connected. Smell, olfactory nerves. So all these nerves, the sense of touch. So based on that, we can say, oh, my mind, my inner mind, is seeing through the eyes, perceiving through the eyes, is listening through the ears. It is seeing through all these windows, perceiving through these five senses. These senses have become windows for the mind to look outside and feel the outside. Okay, you saw something. But now, having seen a flower, mind witnesses this to the window of your eyes, perceives the fragrance of the windows of your nose. What does your heart speak about at that time? If your previous experience was that, oh, I am near the rose and I had a thorn prick me, suddenly you will lose interest in the rose flower. See how heart either helps you go deeper into it, though you like it. I mean, heart takes you away, though you like it because of the previous experience. Or heart encourages you something into, despite knowing the fact it's going to hurt you. What makes heart give you such a guidance? It's tendencies, sanskars. No one can explain this except Sahaj Marg or the Heartfulness way. The mechanism of how heart plays out games in our life. See? It's a beautiful game it plays if you allow it to play nicely. If you become slave to your own samskaras, then heart will become your worst enemy. See? Patanjali puts it in 3 words. In chapter 3, sloka 34, emphasizing the importance of heart, hridaya. He says, hridaya chitta samvitam. Hridaya chitta samvitam. Samvit means wisdom. Heart is the center of wisdom of your consciousness. It's the center of your consciousness. And that's why we meditate on the heart. See? Heart plays a major role in every decision-making thing. See? Of course, sometimes we do make decisions by telling the heart, shut up, and you end up doing something else. But heart had played its role. It's a different thing that you didn't listen. The meaning of this sloka, Hridaya Chitta Samvita, I copied it from one of the commentaries. It says, by Sanyama, mean by Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi, on the heart arises the knowledge of consciousness. In essence, once again, heart is the center of consciousness. So, settling our mind there would lead us to where from the consciousness originates. It's a bridge. Heart is the bridge that connects our consciousness with the source. Why am I emphasizing this aspect of source and consciousness? We have to understand a little bit about it in Babuji's words. He says, children play with toys. Adults also have their own toys of merriments and fun and sensual pleasures. These are toys, objects of pleasures. And he says, so is this consciousness. It's like a toy in the hands of a yogi. The beauty would be, he says, to arrive at a stage where you find the source of consciousness. Don't play with consciousness. Go to the source of consciousness. And heart connects us with the source. Okay. If this heart is weaned away from both action and knowledge, karma and jnana, if it is weaned away, and is taught to settle only on the subtler regions, upasana, in that case, the teaching is called upasana. The result of this upasana is designated as bliss and peace, which is kept as the final goal. But there is the pleasure of duality in this upasana, which is not to be relied upon. It is a defect. The gross region of body is the place of multiple transformations. The vritti or active current of mind is disturbed again and again from this place, and since happiness is the result of concentration or a focused mind and settling down of disposition of the mind, misery or sorrow is experienced on its being disturbed. I made a remark here that the way we are with complexities or our vrittis, our tendencies, it is impossible to settle on any of them. Ordinarily, it is never-ending saga, one after another. The itch of the mind continues, and so the worries. Its happiness is temporary, transient, dependent, and increases consciousness, throws in hesitation or dvida, and one can attain neither enjoyment, bhoga, nor union with the ultimate. So there is a defect to this way we arrive at happiness by fulfilling the objective world or associating ourselves with multiplicity. Okay. In the same way, with regard to the spiritual, since it takes with it the influence and shadow of materiality, it cannot have a firm footing there also, and it goes there without any consciousness and returns from there in the same condition. Desirelessness and contentment will not come. It remains imperfect and full of defects. The qualities of perfections are not developed in it, nor does it attain perfection. The scriptures describes these three forms of happiness and misery. Adi Bhautika, caused by the creatures made of elements of nature. Adi Daivika, caused by fate or your destiny or gods. And Adhyatmikta, caused by one's own heart, in the heart. Here too, there is a play of settling and unsettling, or bondage and renunciation. Unsettling makes one restless, and in the process develops fear. Bondage, fear, freedom, etc. also can be classified based on the root cause of it. When we meditate, where is our mind? Do we have gentle and loving approach in inviting Divya Prakash in our heart? Or are we busy allowing feelings of the heart and the thoughts of the mind mingle into multifarious identification with the Adi Bhautik and Adi Daivik topics? Be what may, any of these three, am I able to erase selfishness? Am I able to let go of identification with all that is Am I able to let go of identification with all that is I, me and mine? Then there is a possibility of transcending the play of three, Adi Bhautika, Adi Daivika and Adhyatmikta. The three causes can be removed moment we transcend our individual self. That's why our prayer, which talks about we, our and us. Remember? Okay. So, Pani then, all right. Thus, misery and happiness is caused according to the combination and influence of these three sources of play out of our destiny. Happiness is the name of a certain disposition of mind, of upasana, of the condition of firmness, settling and withdrawal of mind, and misery is the name of that disposition in which there is wicked desire, evil propensity, jerk, removal, and weakness. Accept this, happiness and misery are nothing. The current of mind flows all over the body, from the head to the foot, in the form of currents through the veins and arteries. Happiness is experienced where it settles, and misery is experienced when it is removed from there by force. It always plies between the physical, mental, and spiritual planes and experiences happiness and misery. My comment here is feeling good or bad not only on the part of this physical body, but this settling and unsettling goes on at a mental, emotional, and spiritual level as well. That gives us the idea that when mind is settled on the body versus when mind is settled on, let us say, my emotional needs or my mental needs or my spiritual craving. That's why these words of pleasure, joy, bliss, these are different phases of happiness. The way we are identifying ourselves, how our mind settles, if it settles on the bodily requirement, sensual desires, we call it pleasures. When emotionally we are satisfied, we become ecstatic, joyful. When spiritual things are fulfilled, we feel at peace, we feel calm, we feel at bliss. So, identification of our mind with all these planes creates a different states, which are given different words. Only now we can understand the meaning behind the pleasure, joy, bliss, peace, calmness. Okay. If it travels of its own accord, in a natural way, then it will not feel happiness and misery. On its settling, happiness is experienced, while misery is experienced on its being removed by force. Thus, happiness and sorrow is a play of settling and moving or removal of the current of the mind. Daaji gives very humorous example here. For example, he says two persons are playing chess. The minds of both are concentrated on the game. They are deeply interested in it and they get pleasure, freshness and happiness. If a third man comes and annoys them or disturbs the game and overthrows the chessboard, their settled mind is perforce removed. Or in other words, it was compelled to move. The result is relation is cut off. There is disinterestedness and unhappiness. This is the first instance. Take another example. A person goes for a stroll in the garden. He is seeing flowers, creepers, avenue trees, and beautiful scenery. The area emitting fragrance. His disposition of mind is settled on it, and he is happy. If his attention is made to divert perforce through the influence of any individual, event, or opposition, his happiness is converted into sorrow. Take one more example. Sitar and tabla are being played. The songster is singing. The mental disposition of the hearer is immersed in the song or the music, and he is very happy. If someone removes him from that place, his disposition will be removed from there and he becomes unhappy. This disposition gets happiness when it makes the edible articles and the organ of taste as its center and settles there. Remove the articles or bite the tongue. The disposition suddenly withdraws itself and the result will be unhappiness. Provoke a dog chewing a bone and see the result. When a man is hale and healthy, the current of the mind flows through the veins and arteries and settles on the physical plane, which results in happiness. If there is an injury or the vein is cut or there is bleeding, the flow of the current will not settle. It has to move away again and again on the account of the injury, and the result cannot be anything other than unhappiness. In the state of perfect health, and the disposition where the disposition settles, resulting in happiness. In ill health, it becomes unsettled, and the result is unhappiness. If the stomach functions well on account of the settling of the disposition, there is happiness. If there is heaviness or indigestion and disposition of unsettled, there is pain and unhappiness. Likewise, this is applicable to all conditions of ill health. There will be two conditions on rubbing ointment over the wounded part of the body. Either the continuity of the veins will be re-established without any hindrance to the current to flow, or that part will be benumbed and the disposition will cease to unsettle, with the result that there will be no unhappiness, there will be no pain. What we call anesthesia. When you put anesthesia, the message from the painful organ is not going to the mind. So mind is not actively paying attention to the injured area. So it is not disposed of. It is not settling or unsettling. You remain indifferent to it. Okay. So it is all play of mind according to him. When a sympathetic friend, a physician or a guru or an affectionate relative comes and sits beside a patient, the flow of patient's mental disposition leaves the lower part of the body by the effect of medicine and reaches the brain, which unconsciously becomes its center as per the natural law. So there will be no feeling of pain when a person breaks his head by falling from high mansion, and flow of his mind due to the effect of this blow leaves the lower part region of the body and settles in the brain. There too, the same occult principle applies. Happiness is not anywhere outside. It is in our fixing the attention, in the steadiness of disposition and in the withdrawal of our mind. Those who know this secret need not search for happiness outside. A person is entangled in particular thought, making his heart as its center. He is merged in joy on knowing the result. This thought may pertain either to a mathematical problem, or to an enigma in astronomy, or to a question in philosophy, or it may be any other thought. There too he gets happiness and is in a state of merger. If anyone disturbs him, the disposition is unsettled and he will feel unhappy. No other theory is tenable in the spiritual field except that of the flow of disposition and steadiness of attention. Spiritual happiness is nothing but steadiness, settling, and peace. Allahu Akbar. I think we have concluded this chapter. Rather, it took me too long to finish this journal. So sorry. Good night, everyone.